that was probably during the period, 14, 15, I guess, when you had the hat and the cane and you walked in church, cluck, 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 cluck.
To make Daddy very happy.
He had a number of little things he did. Once he bald his head, and then once he relaxed it. He had
boy. Come on.
And braids.
I don't have pictures of that.
What do you call it?
Yeah, the cornrows.
Yes.
I have the
He
cornrows.
had quite a bit of hair, and it grew long. And we had a banquet at Manassas, and he had that morning he had relaxed his hair.
And I ran out of relaxing before I got finished.
So Daddy apparently, Daddy said, "Are you going to the dinner tonight?" Timmy said, "Yeah." Daddy said, "Well, I'm not." But he did go. The other thing is, Mama's best friend and her daughter were there, and they kept hunching. Timmy said, "Who is that? I don't know that boy." And all of a sudden, it hit Devera.
No, she doesn't know who that scruffy white boy.
And Miss Reeves was being logical. She says, "I know Catherine knows a lot of people I don't know, but I can't figure where she got that little scruffy white boy." And finally, it hit. I think it was Devera. Mama, that's Timmy. So that was the story of the banquet, and then he bald.
All the stories to come to remember.
When he bald his head, my grandmother said it reminded her of her father. And Timmy used to stay down there. I guess when you were sick or something.
I had the mumps.
Yeah, we all stayed down there.
Huh?
And Timmy was always kind of stood up for his opinions, regardless of the age of the person in charge. And Granny would get mad, and then she said he'd look at his head, and it looked so much like her father, she couldn't say anything. That was a part of her thing. He looked like her father, so that was all right. And then one time, I never saw this, but say Timmy would dance. He'd go to dances, and he'd kick his feet out like the Russians, like a Russian dance.
Why don't you dance for us?
Yeah, right.
That was one of the
I
things.
can't see that.
That was one of the things.
I don't think you're gonna see that. Here you go, girl.
You coming or going, Avery?
I'm getting ready to take Lulu's dinner.
Oh, okay.
Do you think she wants a piece of cake?
Yes.
More than likely she will.
I was. Like she's like Hannah. She made one.
Go ahead.
Which one is she like?
Anyone, take a piece of each if you want.
Yeah, Lulu, she'll appreciate the cake.
Yeah, just put it on the whole plate.
Let's see. Timmy used to stay with me a lot in D.C. One of the hardest things I did when he came to D.C. for
Separate
good,
plate.
he came to finish high school, and we found the school at First and P, Armstrong. I dropped him off at school and says, I showed him the road. I said, now get home the best way you can.
Oh, no. So to learn the city?
Was it a bad
And
thing?
it was snowy and rainy.
It was probably this time of year.
Yeah, it was cold.
So this one over here said, do that to his little brother.
Somebody did say really?
Was it bad weather?
Oh, no. But it was a learning experience.
Yeah. And it got so, Timmy knew D.C. pretty well, now probably far better than I do. And then, a few months, I guess a year or so later, Aaron came, and he couldn't keep up with Timmy, because Timmy would ride the bus and get off
And
the bus.
he seemed like such a country bumpkin down there. He really
You
did.
remember how he crossed the street?
He would run for dear life. He would just run for dear life. It wouldn't look like he just would take off.
Who did that?
She's eating it, Aisha.
Oh, it's okay.
Aisha kept asking her for a piece of fruit and she wouldn't give it to her. And finally she decided to give it to her and Aisha was like, I gotta go to the bathroom. And she came in.
Oh, gosh. I remember the first day of school, when he didn't like school.
Lulu, are you able to come to the door? Okay, you want to unlock it, Amy's bringing dinner down. Yeah. Okay.
Bad.
Mm-hmm.
I can't stop eating this cheese.
He wore glasses very young. He was operating on it 5, I guess.
I was in 1965. I was
On
6.
your way to first grade.
Yeah.
And he was very brave. Oh my goodness.
For his eyes?
To have his eyes
To
out
the
there.
surgery.
Yeah. And Mama was so upset. She said, I couldn't go up there with that boy. I let his father take him on up there. But Daddy was spunky. He took him on up.
I was in the hospital for a week.
Said she couldn't go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, Mama would have this habit of sending somebody, but she would not go. She would not
Yeah.
go.
He was very brave. After a while, the hospital had gotten a little much for him. Now, you can tell the story about what the nurse said to you.
I just remember arguing with the nurses. I remember that. And I went. They had this little play area, and where the kids used to go to play. So I went down there one day, and the nurse said, "What? You down here in the playroom with the children?" And, you know.
And you were 6, right?
Yeah, I was 6, and but you know, I remember that. I mean, even to this day, if I smell like adhesive tape, it reminds me of that incident because back then they used ether on a cloth to put you out, and it smelled very much like adhesive tape, and they used that when they did the surgery, and if I smell it even now, you know, it throws me back to then, and I remember that.
I think one of the unusual things, there was another lady there with her little boy, and the year before, he had the same surgery that Timmy had, eye
Are
surgery.
you recording me?
Johnny. Johnny.
That was his name.
Mm-hmm.
They did both eyes at the same time, so Timmy was blinded for what, a couple of days, I guess. I don't know how long they left the bandages on. And the other lady said, boy, he was good. She said, my son was screaming and yanking at the bandages, and Timmy just...
Yeah, I remember, and I woke up and I thought I was still asleep.
Mm-hmm.
With those bandages.
I cannot stand that feeling.
Being able to see.
You fall asleep like with your face on the pillow and you're like half asleep. You think you're awake, but you can't see, so you think you're blind. I would see me all the time.
Yeah, girl.
When I was in the Cinderella car last Christmas.
Speaking of things reminding you of things,
Peter teasing you.
like I was just telling Ann
Just teasing.
that I smelled cherry chapstick because I bought it for the first time in a really long time. And then I was like, I keep thinking about Ann. I just kept thinking about you all day because I was like, chapstick, Ann.
The one thing about Tim is, I think, and I can't say true or false, but truth is very critical. It's very true. And if it's not the whole story told, then in his mind, he's not telling the truth. He was doing a class, and the professor wanted to know if he, for this class time, if he had read the book of Ezekiel. And he said no. But Timmy had read the book of Ezekiel, but it wasn't in the time frame of the class.
Oh my goodness.
So in his mind, that wasn't true to tell it. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I disagree with that.
Wow.
But that's important. One time he got a little out of hand at school, and Daddy said, "Did you have to say that much?" Or whatever. And Timmy said, "Well, you told me to always tell the truth." So it came back, yeah.
Is birthday the one?
Well, yeah, this is still the birthday.
Things that I remember
Your birthday
fondly
is the one?
is Timmy with
No,
his steering wheel.
Oh,
your
yeah.
birthday is the
We'd
one.
be washing clothes because the end of the basement would go outside and we'd wash downstairs and go out and hang the clothes up. And Timmy would be there with his little steering wheel going over the little area where the wash water would run out. And the beep beep, you say, "Hi Timmy." "I'm not Timmy." "Hi Green Man." "I'm not Green Man." "Well, who are you?" "I'm Green Man's daddy." "Hi Green Man." "I'm not Green Man. I'm little Gay Gay." He grabbed your hook in your shirt, called him his son.
He had many of these, didn't he? And every once in a while,
That
he
is
would
weird.
beat Timmy. Yeah, every once in a while he'd beat Timmy.
Wow.
Another person trying to say I was strange.
Green Man. Where did you get that? A TV or something?
That was a tractor, right?
Tractor.
He had a little plastic tractor.
That was Green Man.
Yeah, and the man on it was green, just like John Deere, what John Deere said.
Little Gay Gay's coming on. Little
I
Gay
know where he
Gay's
got
coming
that
on.
from.
And this one with her dog is always.
Somebody else.
New name, yeah.
And we
Yeah.
on the line. And we like put her hands on the shoulders and go around the way.
That's what you say.
I thought he was a big
This is like her daddy when it comes to slicing cake so well.
I saw it.
Who cut that big piece of cake?
And then I remember Timmy boxing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know he loves boxing very much.
Love to box.
And
And his dogs.
Well, pork. Love pork right there.
When did you go into the ministry?
Well, let's put it this way: from the time that I was initially supposed to start that, until the time I actually did it, there was about there was a lapse in there, like about 18, 19 years.
Oh.
And I didn't really get into it until about the late 90s.
I want some more.
I just had no interest in that, no desire for that at all. Even though I felt that's what I was supposed to
Hannah.
do. I was not by nature a religious person. I like scientific things. I was very almost anti-religious. Really.
like astronomy, sciences.
Yeah, that was my best subject in school. Science.
What do you want to say about Daddy? He spoils you?
No. That spoils me about 5 minutes.
No, more than that.
You want some more fruit?
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Every 5 minutes.
And what does he call you?
A rotten fish.
Mm-hmm.
Rotten fish.
That's what,
no.
that's what my mother called it.
Just a rotten fish.
You are rotten fish. You are rotten fish. You
You want some more fruit, girl?
are rotten fish. You are rotten fish.
She really, this is the only niece that hasn't really made over me.
You are rotten fish.
Now she,
You are rotten fish. You are
You
rotten.
rotten fish.
No, I'm not a rotten
Well, like I said,
Me
it's consolation.
either.
Doesn't
You
make over
are
me either.
him.
It's consolation.
Oh, please.
You're a sweet pig.
Yes, she feels.
You are watching this.
yeah.
You are watching fish. You are watching fish. You are watching fish. You are watching
Hannah,
fish.
tell them about the time you got lost in the store. What happened?
I got lost in the store.
Oh.
I didn't tell one of the people I got lost in the store.
Yeah, tell him quick.
That was not a very comforting thought.
Were you down at Granny's when with the monks when what was it? One of those scientific shows, Mr. Johnson and the Eyes of was it Peter? I think it was Peter and I.
Most tore us up that year. Oh my,
Yeah.
every one of us had them. Terrible.
I think Timmy had them after.
The last.
Yeah, I think so.
And I remember when he got chicken pox, he was furious because at the time we had chickens and he fussed because Mama got all these chickens. We need to get rid of those chickens.
No, what about third Sunday?
Oh, I was complaining about church. I used to hate going to church. And we only went, at that time we only had it one Sunday, one Sunday out of the month. And that was too much for me. And I complained about it.
What it was, he wanted some fried chicken.
That was homecoming, yeah.
For third Sunday. Third Sunday.
Then one time, because he had kind of, was a list of what you call, he said, starch, that's too much starch. So, if what the old folks say, he was the likely candidate, I guess, for the ministry. He's very, very well read in the subject he likes. I know he reads well and
I
he
was
retains.
working like a pocket coat.
Yes, you were.
I'm not like,
Working like a pocket
I'm not like,
coat.
like our father. I was not a church man by nature.
Tell just what he had his dinner with.
Oh, the silverware was my grandmother's silver.
Yeah. Nice.
And it was so appropriate for Timmy to have the older set.
This morning.
I saw it, but I was going to ask you about it.
I didn't use it now. It's just the song.
It's so heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Solid. It's nice.
So after you knew Timmy at a later time, what did you think of? You started telling me.
Too serious. Everything about the Egyptians and stuff. To myself. I couldn't watch that film because I didn't know anybody, so I just sat there.
What is it?
I thought you were just obsessed with being an Egyptian and Egyptian stuff and things like
That
that.
was my first conversation that I heard. You were sitting at the table talking about the Egyptians.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
He was quite a.
That was one of many subjects.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like anytime I want to know something, I call Timmy.
He has a general idea.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I should we can put
Oh,
this on.
yes,
Okay.
indeed.
Come on, Papa,
Yes,
let's go put your shirt
now
down.
if this had been out here, it would have been no question in my mind.
I don't know where you bought those things. One way you would have bought those back then.
It was a magazine they had down there a lot of stuff.
Oh, okay. That would be that.
Mm-hmm. The trouble knows fall.
I'll put it on.